Well, welcome to the show, you guys. Today, I am Keith Riddle, co-host of Chestnut Checker, sitting here with Jordan Tampien. And today, our guest is Leigh Veidman, who is the head coach of the local Spokane Velocity USL soccer team. Inaugural season was last year. You guys went to the championship.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm excited to learn all about soccer today.
I know. It's a new one for you, Keith.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's not new.
Did you play it? Did you play it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I feel like,
Okay. Okay.
I feel like I say every little kid plays soccer, but no, I did. And I loved playing soccer. Yeah. And then I had those really mean parents who, like, at one point in time made me choose my sports. Yeah. They were like, well, you can't play all, And so soccer got, the only reason was the travel. It was the hardest part, was the travel, you know? So as a kid, having other siblings and parents that were on a budget, travel sports like hockey and soccer were like, they kind of really steered you away. Yeah. They were like, baseball's fun, right?
It's right here. This works.
Yeah. So anyways, Leigh, thank you for showing up today and allowing us to pepper you with questions.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to start off because I feel like I'm the new guy here, but give me a little bit of your backstory and how in the heck did you end up in Spokane, Washington, coaching soccer?
Yeah, so I'm from Liverpool, England.
Okay.
I lived in Liverpool up until I was 20. Came to the US for the first time in 2000 and I think it was 6 or 7. And I came over to play in a tournament in Dallas. Came over to play in a tournament in Dallas and was seen by a university in the US, and I was approached about coming over to the US on a soccer scholarship, go to school and play soccer. Never really left England outside of a little mini vacation to Spain or something, so didn't really know much about the US other than what I saw on TV, and everything on TV was real. So getting the chance to go and see everything I'd seen on the movies was like, wow, like this is insane. So
how old were you at this time?
I think I was 17, 18 when I first came over to play in the tournament. Okay. So then the prospect of, and I live in a home that is a single parent family. It's just my mum and 2 sisters, and then there's me. So being the only man in the house at 18 years of age, you get to a point where you're like, yeah, I'm a man, I'm ready to leave and go out to the big wide world, So when the opportunity came about, it was something that I wanted to jump on. But yeah, I came to the US in 2008. I ended up taking a scholarship coming over 2008, and then went on this really...
Where did you go?
I went to... Originally, I was supposed to go to Creighton University in Nebraska, in Omaha, Nebraska. Wasn't eligible for NCAA eligibility criteria. So they were basically like, go to a junior college down the road. We'll keep an eye on you. Do well in soccer. Do well in class. We'll come back in after 2 years, see if we can get you eligible, and then we'll go from there. Didn't work out. Wasn't eligible still.
We don't have to dive down this trail, but like, why were you ineligible?
I still don't know to this day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Because I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, what does it take to be eligible to play?
Well, recruitment, you think of who comes through GU basketball program.
I don't know. I don't know how that
eligibility rules then were very different than what they are right now, especially for internationals. But yeah, that was an interesting period, which I'm sure we'll dig into a little bit more.
So you were playing soccer for like a junior college?
Yes.
And there's no eligibility issues there, but to go play at a university level, you just weren't eligible.
Correct. For the D1 level.
D1 level.
Got it. So how long did you play at the JC level?
So I was there for 2 years, 3 technically, because I had an interest in first year in the USA, which I'm sure we'll dig into, which was a massive lesson for me, life lesson in general, and just something that was a turning point, I would say, in my life. Spent a couple of years there, went on to play NAIA, went down to University of Texas at Brownsville in southern Texas, which was an experience.
Yeah, good barbecue.
Yeah, really and then after that, went back up to Omaha, Nebraska, to a school called Bellevue University, and then from there, kind of just started to bounce around in the soccer world. From there, I went out to Boulder, Colorado, spent a couple of years there. From Boulder, went out to Fresno, California to Oklahoma City to Charleston, South Carolina to here. And in between all of that, over the past 15, 16 years, was living in Des Moines, Iowa, living in Toronto for a little bit. So yeah, kind of being a little bit of everywhere.
Wow, what a journey.
Yeah.
So let back up because you said something, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you said your very
Yeah.
first year in the U.S. was like a life-changing year. What happened? What was that all about?
Yeah, so I prefaced it in the way I did about what you see on movies, college parties, you know, just living that life. So, you know, as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old coming over to the US, you see that stuff and it's appealing. But you also want to play. You've got ambitions to go to the next level, which is what my ambitions were. It never worked out for me in England. I was a part of 2 academies, never got a professional contract, and it was just not working. So when the opportunity came to go to the US and get a scholarship and play and find a new avenue to make it as a professional player, that was the most appealing thing for me because it just wasn't working out at home. So I come over to the US, you're thinking, it's the US, I've seen it on TV, everyone speaks English, like how different can it be? You know, how different can it be?
Jeez.
And then I end up going to Council Bluffs, Iowa, in my first real longer term exposure to the US, and just a complete shock to the system. Not just the fact that I couldn't understand that I was a student first, athlete. I got that got back to front. I always put my football first because that's all I ever knew was football.
Yeah.
And the only thing that ever mattered in my life was football because my only goal in life was to become a professional player.
Yeah.
I never really conceptualized the idea of the fact that if it doesn't work out, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy to
That
say
is
that?
crazy.
But it's such a, I mean, it happens all the time, right? And it's like looking back, you're like, oh, I never really thought about if it didn't work out.
Yeah, yeah. It's so naive, but that was the reality of it. So I came over in my first semester, basically, you know, put football before everything, put my social life before everything. Didn't really go to class. I lost I failed every single class. To go to school, I needed a full ride. There was no way I could afford it, just based on the background that I came from. I lost a full ride within 6 months in the fall season of 2008. And I got to the end of the season, and they were like, well, yeah, we want you to come back next year, but you're going to have to pay for the classes that you've just failed, and you're going to have to pay to retake the classes next year to get yourself back on track and then potentially get your scholarship back. So at that point, I'd realized what had happened, the significance of it. And if you remember, 2008 was a huge period of time just in our lifetime with the recession.
Yeah.
So before I knew it, I was on a plane back home, back in England, during the recession, already in an environment that is, it's tough to get a job anyway. That is, you know, anything that's going to change your life. Yeah. It's a job that's just really going to keep the electricity on and put food on the table. I couldn't even get a job mopping the floors during the recession when I was back home.
Yeah.
So it took me, I think it was a good 6 months before that period of time really settled in for me about what I had, what I'd lost, how much I'd messed up, a lot of reflection, and I matured more than I probably ever have in my life in those 6 months.
Wow.
Just realizing that at the opportunity at hand that I had and what had gone wayward. So that was probably the biggest moment in my life where I was, I'd learned so much about myself in that moment and what I needed to do to find the success that I needed. And it wasn't necessarily about a job. It wasn't necessarily about, you know, money. It wasn't necessarily about those things. It was just about the basics of what it takes to be successful, you know.
So in that period of time of your life, what were you doing as far as like to provoke that change or to facilitate that change? I mean, like, were you intentional about it? Were you like reading books? Were you like talking to people? Did you have a mentor, or were you just saying like this was a really aha growth moment for you?
Yeah. It wasn't necessarily that. I mean, my mum, who's a single parent, done a great job in raising our family. She's, you know, obviously the mentor I had at that moment in time. And for as hard as it was for her to say, go to the US and chase it, find a way to get back, I had a hard time with doing that at first, because initially I was like, I'm not going back. It's too hard. I don't want to. My masculine 18-year-old self wouldn't necessarily say that in the moment. I would just, you know, deflect and be like, no, I don't want to go back, you know. But that was a mentor in my mother who was pushing me to go back in a sense. But that was mainly a huge period of just self-reflection of who am I, what do I want, and what do I need to do to fix my wrong.
Right.
But it wasn't enough for me personally to fix my wrong myself. I needed help. because there was a financial component to this that I couldn't overcome.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening, and I got very, very fortunate, is somebody in my city council found out my story about somebody getting out of our community to try and make their life better, which, you know, this is not a knock on the people of my community and where I'm from. It's a system very easily you get locked into and you can't get out of. People are not really supposed to leave and do well for themselves. They found out about my story, and I was very thankful and fortunate that it fell into the hands of the right person who was able to offer me a grant to basically pay for the classes that I'd failed, and then to retake the classes for the next semester for me to get my scholarship back. So they gave me enough money to essentially cover the classes I failed, to retake those classes, basically a whole school year's worth of classes, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, is no small change. And then that gave me the opportunity to go back to school and start that process of righting the wrongs.
Yeah. What did the mornings look like in that moment? Like, this year's been one where I've had to dive a little deeper in some of the lower, darker moments, but like, what are you telling yourself in the midst of that, before that grant comes in, before those pieces, like each day? Like, what motivated you to keep going forward on that?
I think it was just a long period of falling back into the same old habits and routines that I had before I left. I saw the opportunity that was in the US, a little bit of a taste. But yeah, going back to what I used to do, which was just living for the weekend.
Yeah.
I had no job. What am I working towards? I wouldn't necessarily go down the road of what I'm living for, but what am I working towards? What have I got here at home? What pathway am I on? I wasn't on a pathway at home. It's very difficult to find a true professional career outside of football that is really going to put you in a position to buy a home, to have a car, to not live a life where you just live in life to keep the gas, electricity on and food on the table. That wasn't there at home. But I got over to the US and I saw that opportunity. So once I had that period of self-reflection, I realized what I'd lost. And it was just like a light bulb that went off. And then I had to find a way to solve that problem. And it just kind of fell in my lap where this person believed in me and threw the grant at me and was like, here's the opportunity to go back. And then to me, it was like, oh, I've actually got to go back, and I've actually got to work hard, and I've actually got to go to school. I've actually got to pass all these classes. So I realized very quickly what life was about, and not necessarily just going over there to have fun.
Yeah.
So you make your way back. Obviously, you have to get through that semester. Did you get your scholarship back?
I did. I went through that semester. I think vaguely my grades in that first semester, I think I got A's in everything. I was never I was a smart student. You know, I was very capable of doing well in class. I just decided not to.
Yeah.
But I went back. I think I got A's or close to A's in everything. Got my GPA to where it needed to be. And then eventually I got my scholarship back.
Yeah.
What was playing soccer like?
It was, listen, it's what I love. It's my passion. It's everything. It's my opportunity to get away from all the troubles in life. And at that period, I had a lot with the stuff going on, right? So to get back and find the balance of school, student first, we've got to make sure we take care of that. And then going on the pitch. And the feeling at that moment of, before I had this period of time that was in 2008, the soccer was great. I did really well. I was an All-American. I'd led the league in goals, points, etc., etc. I did really well. The classroom was a disaster. But once I got back and I started to do well in class, I was also doing well on the pitch. I think this is the second year. I think I was an All-American. But once you're starting to do well in class and doing well on the pitch, and all of those pieces come together, now you start to get a sense of, okay, I'm on the right path to success here. I don't know where I'm going on this journey yet, but this journey that I've just gone through in messing up massively, losing almost the best opportunity that I'd ever had in my life, to then going back into a dark hole, having a really long period of self-reflection, maturing as a 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid or man, whatever you want to call it, then having to make the decision to leave your family again for the second time, which is not easy in itself, to then go back over and, you know, understand the initiative you've got to have, the work ethic you've got to have, the time management, the planning, you know, all of those just kind of cliche words that come into life. It's real. Yeah. And if I didn't learn those lessons, I would never have gone back to school and got the classes, got the scholarship, and had the kickstart in my college soccer career that I had.
So outside of go to school and focus on that, what advice would you give that 18-year-old version of yourself now? Like looking back at that situation.
Yeah, it's get your priorities straight, really. It is understand that football can be taken away very quickly. It is not the only thing in the world that can bring you success, even though in my community it's probably football or boxing. But realizing that there's not much else. Football is not the only thing, and there's a lot more out there for you to be successful in. And I didn't really know that at the time, because I come from this bubble and height in Liverpool to where if you got promoted into a management job within a factory or a pub, that was like, wow, you got a good job.
Yeah.
That's like you're doing well for yourself. But to see that there's more than that outside of the bubble that I was in at the time, it was really about that. Yeah. It was about understanding that there is more, but I really needed to get my priorities right in really applying myself.
So how do they look at you when you go back now? I know you went back and visited. Are you like the one everybody looks up to coming back to town, having done something, or you still feel like you got a long way to build that? Or have things changed even from that,
you know,
felt in a bubble piece?
To be candid, I don't really pay attention to it. I just go home and hang out with my family, and I know my family talk and tell my story and stuff like that. And you know, we'll be in the pub, or we'll see someone in the street, and this is Leigh, blah blah blah, and we'll have a conversation. But yeah, you know, it's funny. I never really did reconnect with that person who believed in me to give me that grant that one time. I have no idea where they are today. I have no idea if they know the impact that they had on my life. Yeah, I'm actually reflecting in the moment and thinking I should probably try and find that person.
I might try to find him for you. We're switching them.
So just to fast forward the story a little bit, right? Like, so you have your first tough year. Obviously, you're playing soccer. You get your grades in your soccer rolling. What kind of happens then? Like, so you're still battling that eligibility issue, right? But at what point in time did, like, and that was something I was thinking about before I even got here, is like, how does one become a soccer coach? Like, at what point in time did coaching, or did you even consider coaching, or how did that come about at all? Yeah. So give me a little bit of the gap story between like more of your playing and then transitioning into being a coach.
Yeah. Coaching is something I'd done since I was 16 when I was back home in England.
Okay.
Basically, the schooling system in England was you finish high school at 16, you then go into college, what you would consider junior college here, until about 18, and then you go to university. So in that college period, that kind of JUCO period, I took a couple coaching courses and kind of started the journey there. But being a international coming over to the US on a student visa, if you don't have a financial bucket to dig into when you get over here, you are living, you know, as a student does, essentially. You know, living off the ramen lifestyle, you know, it's just, it's no real difference from anybody else. But I think as you get here, you've got to find a way to make it work. You've got to find a way. So coaching was that way for me. And it was just something that really spiraled into taking the next step in the soccer pyramid, to the next step, to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. Whereas over 16 years now, I think it is, I've been here. You know, I'm now in my 7th season as a professional coach. So it's really just been put your head down, stay humble, educate yourself.
So you were
grow.
coaching though when you were in college?
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of like as like a side hustle, make some money?
Yeah.
So who were you coaching at that point in time?
So it really starts out with kids who are just getting introduced to the game.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really about just getting in at the foundation level and learning what coaching is about. And then it just slowly progressed from there to a little bit older, girls, boys. Then you go to middle school, high school. Then you go to ODP. Then you go into college. And then...
And did you transition through all those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So... I'm very fortunate in the fact that I think if I am remembering right, every pyramid every level of the pyramid of US soccer I've coached in.
Oh, wow.
So that's been a massive foundation to my growth and development as a coach, but also a person.
Yeah, for sure. So you coached college. Where'd you coach college at?
Midland University in Nebraska.
Okay. And how long did you do that?
2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a process where I was a assistant coach / grad assistant and worked through my masters at that period of time. So the way the grad assistant setup is you get your student visa. They basically don't pay you. They pay you by paying for your masters. And then maybe you get like a little living allowance, on the side, like a couple $100 or something. But yeah, that was... The whole college journey for me as an international is chaos in many ways. I'm very fortunate in the fact that I got through school with zero debt because of soccer. But, from Iowa Western and that JUCO journey to then going to University of Texas at Brownsville, Brownsville just wasn't for me. It just didn't feel right.
Tough town.
So I left there very quickly and went to Bellevue University, trying to find a way to live and just make ends meet. And then going on to getting my bachelor's degree with Bellevue in exercise science, going on to Midland to be a grad assistant and do my master's. And then through that whole journey is just finding a way to get the next visa to stay in the country, the next student visa to stay in the country. If my student visa's up, now what do? I need to leave. I need to be creative and find a way to stay in the country. Okay, let's explore an OPT visa, which is a visa that basically allows you to work in connection to the degree that you got. So there was a never-ending just finding a way to be creative, finding a way to just problem solve, finding a way to keep this journey going, whatever means it took, because I knew from that experience in 2008 that I didn't want to go home. Yeah. I didn't want to go home, so I had to find a way to make it work. And as I started to get older and more mature, I started to get more clarity in, yes, I'm working towards my goal, but I'd been away from my family at that point probably 6 to 8 years, and nothing really changed in my family dynamic. My mum was still working in a liquor store. She'd worked there for 26 years. My whole perspective on what I was working for changed around that point, and that now this isn't just about me. This is about finding a way to get my mum and my sisters out of the situation they're in right now, and either help them there to live a better life, or ideally get them here to help, give them a different life and get them out of the bubble of what we've lived in at home, which is very hard to get out of.
Yeah.
So when did you start? When did you quit playing soccer and start coaching?
Probably played too long. 28. I'm 36 now, so 28, 29. I tried to keep pushing the envelope and make it happen, but yeah, it got to a point where it was very evident nobody was going to give a international spot to a 28-year-old who'd never had professional experience as a player. So around that time is when I was like, okay, let's go full pelt on coaching.
Nice. And how did you end up in Spokane? So bring me there.
Yeah.
It's a full circle.
Yeah.
Full circle.
It's I'll give you the past kind of 6 years of coaching professionally. I got my first break into professional coaching as a fitness coach, assistant coach in Fresno, California. It's been an interesting journey. I went there, did a year. Team did really well, got into playoffs, which was fantastic. And then the club folded. So my first venture into the professional world, which I'd spent a long time trying to get into, completely was just taken out of my hands immediately.
Is that a USL team?
Yeah. USL Championship.
Yeah, championship, right?
So that was gone. So then I go back to Boulder, Colorado, which was home base at the time, not a bad place to be. Go back to home base there, and then I had another opportunity pop up, which was very fortunate. So I go to Oklahoma City with the Oklahoma City Energy at the time. Go in there as the assistant coach. Assistant coach year 1, COVID happened year 2. Kickstart back up. A good friend of mine who was the coach at the time unfortunately lost his job, and they asked me to step in as the interim. So I stepped in as the interim head coach, finished out the rest of the season, which was about 3/4 of the season. Had a good year, and they offered me the full-time head coaching job, which was fantastic. That's kind of the trajectory I wanted for myself. So 3 years in Oklahoma, I'd got that opportunity, which was fantastic. And then I get that opportunity, and the club goes into hiatus. So
Because of COVID?
No.
Oh.
The club just went into hiatus. So I was employed for a year with the thought that we were coming back. That was the plan. And then we get to the end of 2023, and I find out the club's not coming back. So I find out in December, and our season ends in November and starts in basically January in the championship. So any job that's available in December is probably taken.
Yeah.
So my opportunity now to get back in as a head coach was almost impossible. So that's the second club that I'd been involved in and the second club that had folded.
Oh, wow.
So it was very, very unfortunate circumstances. So, I kind of circle this back into what did I always do for the past 12 years when I had to problem solve for the next visa, the next job, the next whatever it was. What's next? How do I problem solve? How do I get myself back onto the pathway, which is my passion? And I interviewed for a couple of jobs that were out there, and I was very fortunate again where Charleston Battery, the head coach there, reached out to me and was like, hey, we know what your ambitions are, but we're starting a new journey here. We'd love for you to come in and be the assistant coach and help us with this journey. So I went in there 2024. We had a fantastic year. We get to the USL Championship final and unfortunately lost.
I know.
And then as I get into that stage, I started to learn about Spokane Velocity and what was going on here. So I applied for the position and went through the process as anybody else does. And before we got to the final with Charleston, it was all basically signed and sealed that I was coming to Spokane in 24, and here we are.
Here you are. So, side question, and I'm like I don't want to put him on the spot, but I'm also like, out of all the places you've been, because I'm here you talking about like Oklahoma, I'm here you talking about like, what do you think of Spokane?
I love it. I really do, and I'm not just saying that. I really do. I'm a man of the seasons.
Okay.
I learned that in Charleston. That it's nice to have the sun consistently, but it always felt like I was on vacation. I could never really feel like I settled down and felt at home. But I love the place. It's a super cool place. But yeah, I'm a man of the seasons. I love the outdoors. I love the mountains. It's a small town. People are fantastic. It just checked all the boxes. Like
nice.
The second I got into my home, I just felt home, and I knew right away, like, this feels right. This feels right. So I love it. I really do.
Yeah, I got to town and my mom was the agent and started taking him all over and goes, yeah, your coach is picky. And I go, what? Maybe he's picky. And he said, just help him find a home. And so we've ended up getting a sweet spot in Perry District.
Yeah.
It's a good spot.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Good little investment.
So what's the future hold? What are plans here for Spokane and the soccer club that you're running now?
Yeah, so in terms of trajectory for the club, the 3-year plan for us was year one to really build an expansion franchise is nuts. It's incredibly difficult. Statistically, it is a very difficult year, results-wise, on the pitch. So knowing that, year one was really about how do we establish an identity on the pitch. So at the end of the season, you can sit in the stadium and say, wow, that's a Spokane Velocity team. They play this way. This is how they play. They play hard. They play this way in attack. This is how they defend. But also about establishing connections in the community, making sure that we connect with the community and make sure that we build a strong connection to make this a sustainable project moving forward. Because really we're nothing without the community. That's the reality of it, whatever the results are on the pitch. So really it was about that in year one. Year two was then about, okay, let's really start to look at getting ourselves in a playoff position, making sure that we solidify ourselves as a playoff team consistently. And then year three was about, okay, now we should be pushing for the championship.
Yeah, fast forward.
We're ahead by 3 years, which is good and bad.
Yeah.
Which is all, full credit to everybody in the club, front office, ownership, investment group, players, fans, etc. What happened last year was incredible. It was deserved.
Yeah.
It wasn't luck.
Yeah.
It was deserved. There's an element of luck in it with results every now and then on the pitch, but it was fully deserved. But that is the big question now is what is the next season look like and what does it look like in 2-3 years, because those goalposts shift very quickly, the targets shift very quickly.
So what did you do you think that, because that's a huge thing, right? But what was the difference maker? Like how do you come in and all of a sudden get into the championships like your first year? Like you said it was deserved, so like what does that look like?
I am a big believer on people before the player. I think that's a huge
You're gonna have to unpack that one for me.
Yeah. I think it's a huge,
noteworthy.
a huge. I wouldn't say I think it's just something that's missed very much in our game, and I think it's often put the other way around. The player comes before the person. So what I mean by that is,
So I want to understand the phrase. You're a big fan of people before the player, or player before the people?
people before the player. The person is more important than the player.
Okay, gotcha.
And the reason for that is me personally, and this is why I work for the club I do, because a lot of our values align. If I had to boil down who I am as a person, and my values: respect, honesty, very committed, very accountable, and I try to find joy or enjoyment in everything that I do. They're my 5 main values that I live by. Not just words on a PowerPoint. I hope I show those in my actionable behaviors every day. They're things that I expect of every single person that comes into our environment, whether it's a player, a new employee, etc., etc. They must hold those values in alignment with me and or our club's values. So that's important. So when we recruit players for the team specifically, I have a pretty diligent process and digging into them as people. Who are they? What are they about? I go as far as looking at bad moments in video. How do they act in that bad moment? What's their body language? If they have a turnover on the ball and they've got to sprint back in transition to defend, are they stopping, throwing their arms up in the air, or are they putting their head down and sprinting back? For me, those actions tell me a lot about the person and who they are. So I don't just dig into them as a person and have conversations with them. I dig into their former teammates, coaches, etc. Anyone I can get access to that can tell me about the person. And then I also connect the dots with what I've been told. Does that show in the actions they show on the pitch? And I try and combine those two together to get a good picture of what that person's about. Only then can I say, okay, they fit our values, they fit my values for the team. Let's now move forward. Because as a player, I've got a way of playing in attack, defense, transition. I seek individuals in each position that have a specific profile as a player that fit how I want to play for the team. So I'm very specific in that. So I know most of the players that fit how we want to play, which is great. But does the person fit as well? Yeah. Because if that person doesn't fit, and I'm very demanding when our team defends or loses the ball and has to transition back in defense, if they don't have the value and honesty in their work that they put out there on the pitch, they're not going to run back for the team in transition. Yeah. So all those pieces have got to align. So for me, the person is much more important than the player when you're building a roster. So for me, that was really the foundation of the success. And then the next thing comes the community and building that, is making sure that we build a strong connection to our community. Because each market is a little bit different when it comes to sports. You know, I'll use past places where I've lived. Boulder, I would almost say very techie, a lot of wealth, a lot of high-performing people who've got very high expectations for their kids' sports teams or maybe a professional team, because that's just the mentality of the people that are there based on the economy around Boulder.
A lot of type A personalities.
Yeah. So that really reflects in what their expectations are. If they go to watch a professional match, they expect that team to win every single game. You come to a place like Spokane, largely blue-collar city, people who are out there just working, trying to make the best life for themselves, probably want to come out. They want to win, they want to see success, but they also want to be entertained. You know, so it's a very different market from the example I used in Boulder. So how do we connect to that? How do we connect to those types of people, but also build a product on the pitch that exuberates the values, not just of the club and the team and the style of play that I want, but also to give the people what they want to see, which is they want to have fun and be entertained when they go to the game, but they also want to win and have success. So, you know, that's kind of the fast track vision into what we built last year. And I think that was the foundation that led us to what happened last year in making sure that we had the right people in place, but also building a strong connection to our community. And then just having those basic values exuberated every single day in training with a consistency. And there was no negotiation. I liken this to a bowling lane. When the bumpers are up, when your kids are playing bowling, stay inside of those of those bumpers, because if you start to go outside of those bumpers, you've gone against our values and my values, and then it just doesn't work for us. It doesn't work. That's not the pathway to success. So it's a lot of management is about keeping people inside those bumpers. That's what I feel in the soccer world, is keeping people inside those bumpers. And if we stay in those bumpers, it's not going to be a straight shot to the pins. It's going to be like this the whole way. But at some point, it's going to hit the pins. Completely fine, as long as we get the ball there and we hit the pins. So a lot of the pathway of last year was about that. We had some ups, we had some downs, results, etc., etc. Some players worked out for us, some players didn't. That's part of the industry. But staying aligned with the common value, with a common goal, for me, that was really what was the deciding factor. Well, I wouldn't say deciding factor, a large factor in the day-to-day that led to us to get the success that we did last year.
So what are some intentional things you did to keep people in those bumpers? Because it sounds easy, right? In bowling, it's pretty easy unless you throw it over the bumper, right? But a lot of people, you're just missing by a little, or you're not hustling back on a play. But what are some things you did to kind of reinforce what those were? Or intentionally things you did as a coach or as a mentor to them throughout the season?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is the relationship. You're never going to connect with a person in general if you don't build a relationship. I am incredibly demanding, and just to play in our league and play the game of soccer itself is incredibly demanding at this level. And I'm asking them to do more and more and more every day. So if I don't build a base level relationship with somebody and I'm asking them to sprint 100 yards to get back in transition, why are they going to do that for me if I don't have a good relationship with them? They're not really. At some point, that desire burns off and they're just going to be like, whatever. So it's about building a relationship, and then the key is maintaining it. Yeah. And a lot of those relationships about the personal side, just making sure you understand the person, the background, where did they grow up, what makes them tick. I think you can understand a lot about a person based on their upbringing.
Is recruiting players difficult?
Yes. Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about that, because I mean, as a business person, right? Like I feel like, and being kind of type A, a lot of times I've always kind of like been like, gotta be sweet to like deal with professionals all the time, right? Like there's definitely like you are a pathway for them to get to potentially like where you wanted to go, right? Like, so I would imagine most people who are coming to you they take the sport fairly seriously. They're fairly diligent about maybe like their sleep habits or their meal. I don't know. You know, I'm assuming here that professional athletes are kind of it's a different echelon of a person who tends to take things a little bit more seriously. But they're probably also going to like interview you, right? Like, why would I come play for you? So like, talk to me a little bit about like how are you recruiting to your program, and what does that look like for you? And how are you trying to attract those players, or what kind of things are the players grilling you on? Yeah, you know?
To that point, and kind of connecting it to this is, it's not just a relationship, but it's also, what can I do for you? Yeah. What can I do for you? It's easy for me to say, I want you to come and play for me because you fit how I want to play. But almost every conversation I have with a player is it's great. This is great for me. If I sign you, you fit how I want to play, you're going to help us. But it's not really about that. Listen, if we were in the MLS or playing in the Premier League, that's really what it is all about, to be honest with you. But I'd argue even still, there's an element of the person in there. Yeah. But we're in the lower leagues of the US soccer pyramid right now. These guys want to win and have success, but really, what can we do together? And how can I help you achieve what you want to achieve? Because a lot of these guys don't want to stay in this league. They want to project themselves to higher levels, like to your point. So it's about really identifying where they want to go and what I can do to help. And there's many different ways we do that. It's network. It is, because out of my 7 years in the USL, 6 of them have been in the USL Championship, and 1 has been in League One, USL Championship, and then League One. So League One would be a jump up to the Championship, which is where most of our players want to be. So how can I help you use my network to get there? How can I create an individual development plan for you to get there? Yeah. What does that look like? How do we work on that throughout the year? Wow. You know, you want to work on finishing, you don't think your finishing's quite sharp enough. Okay, how do we work on that to help you? So there's different components to that. Some guys want a development plan where it is about the soccer, but they also want to be better leaders. Yeah. So how do we work on a leadership plan for you, and what does that look like? So it's really, I see it as about us, the collective, about what we can do together to be successful, me help you. Because if a team from a higher league comes in, I'll pack your bags and send you, because I want that for you. But we need to build our success here, which is really only going to excel you because the team is needed for you as an individual to go to the next level. So this is a cyclical thing here. So that's in essence how we build that. So that process in getting the player into market, it's about building that and what can we do together to help you, but also you helping us.
How many players are there?
20, it depends, but 22 roughly. 22. Yeah.
And I've had a unique perspective on this one, right? So I get to see the ownership side and then obviously that side. But I would say what you did was create an amazing like culture. Because if you remember the season, it was ups, downs, down, down, up, right? And it was one of those pieces. But what do you think was like the 3 common traits you saw between the players that really made it, really stuck through that and drove on? That you're looking for in players that you bring on, like 3 things that you're looking for. I think a lot of times we're trying to connect, like one day we'll probably have a heart surgeon on here, right? We're going to try to connect to them. There's things that they're going to do in their everyday systems, culture, whatever, that I think translate no matter what you're looking for. And I think sometimes it's interesting to see what people are looking for, like what Google questions are you asking to drive out a certain trait, right? But what are 3 things kind of as you're recruiting and looking besides the budget Ryan gives you?
Yeah. It's a good question. I think the first thing for me from that process was finding players with experience, having them within the spine of the team. Yep. And when I say experience is experienced, yes, as players, and they've had a lot of longevity in their careers, but being involved with expansion franchises or being involved in teams that have had ups and downs and anything different, because that in itself is invaluable in an expansion team's first year.
So kind of some like veterans.
Yes.
A little bit of veterans.
Been through it.
Been through it. Yeah.
Because they're now going to bring in, as long as I set expectations and make the expectations are clear, that is how we act and behave on a daily basis. That is our style of play and what we expect of them as individuals within their role within that style of play. Clarity for me in expectations was the first thing. Yeah. The next thing was consistency in there. Is staying consistent. Our leaders continuously staying leaders, even in the good and the bad and the ugly. So making sure that they are consistent with those expectations and then really adapting. Because in an environment that is so chaotic with results and emotions when results are down, results are down, no knock to our fans, but fans in general, fingers start to get pointed. Why is this guy not defending well? Why is he not scoring goals, etc., etc.? So then it was about being adaptable. In the moments where we were doing well, what do we need to do to raise the bar another level? Yeah. But in the moments where we're not doing well, don't forget about these values and expectations. We live by these no matter what. Yeah. Sticking true to them.
Yeah, so it's interesting to hear a coach talk this way, but and I'm assuming all coaches would say that they would talk this way, but maybe not. but so I bring you like the best soccer player like on earth right now, but they're a total like prima donna. You're not taking them, even at the price. Like the price is right. The player
I couldn't afford them.
Well, I'm saying like what I'm hearing you say is you have these sense of values where like that's probably kind of like this elimination for even some really good players that you're not going to consider if they don't align in those bumpers.
1,000%. I've already turned down. At least this year in the recruitment process, I would say 2 guys who are pretty high level who would help us push our team to the next level. But just through the process of the character checks, they've not checked the boxes that I need to be checked, and I've said no. And they've actually gone to other clubs now, and those clubs have come back to me and asked me to take them on loan for the season. And I've been very clear. I did my character reference checks. It's a no-go.
What are some of those checks?
It's really back to the values and just making sure that, are they honest in what they do every day? Are they respectful?
So let's go granular on that with me, because I think this is what I struggle with sometimes when I'm bringing on, like, I think half of success is building the right team, right? And so I think I struggle with, like, what is literally something you do
well,
to
when you say being honest in what they do,
yeah, like, how do you check
they're not telling lies,
right?
They're being dishonest. But what you're saying is
what does that look like in my environment?
Yeah, exactly.
So the respect thing for me is simple, is... and I kind of have these in order in my mind. The respect thing is the first thing, because if you're in an environment that is not a good environment, for whatever reason, losing, bad coach, you don't connect with the coach, you don't connect with your teammates, to me, that doesn't matter what is going on. Be respectful.
Yeah.
Be respectful to the people around you. Be respectful to your teammates. Be respectful to your fans, etc. So that to me is a non-negotiable. It doesn't matter to me what is going on results-wise. The next thing is honesty, okay? Are you an honest person just in your day-to-day life? But in your work every day, do you come to training every day and you honest in your work and you put 100% into your training every day? Are you going to sleep at the right time? Are you eating right? Are you doing the rehab that you need to? Are you coming in early enough to do your prehab? Are you going to the gym and doing what you need to? You know, are you honest in your work? So these one word values have got a lot of depth in them.
Yeah.
So that they would be some actionables from the honest side. Then I look at the commitment side. They kind of connect with the honesty and some of the things I've just said. If you're a truly committed professional, you're taking care of your nutrition, you're sleeping right, you're doing all the things that you need to be successful, which is going to help the team. And then we go into the accountability side. Well, if you're not, if you've had a bad performance, if you've had 3 or 4 bad games, if you've had 4 or 5 bad training sessions and you're not starting on the weekend, then what's your action to that? What's your reaction to that? Yeah. You know, are you just sulking? Are you going through the motions and you're doing nothing to solve the problem? Or are you thinking next action? What do I need to do to hold myself accountable? And then, of course, the enjoyment is the last one. But as I go through my research and talk to prior coaches and players, I ask the questions. Well, you've had a tough season. You've had a bad run of results. Like, you know, what was his reaction? How did he act in training? Did he train well, or did he just kind of like, whatever, you know, half-assed training?
Yeah.
And through those specific questions, I can gather intel and be like, this guy's not going to work for us because he doesn't meet the honesty in his work on a daily basis. He's not committed because he's not trying his hardest every single day to help his team get out of the bad results that they're in. Yeah. So they're all things that I try to dig for specifically.
Maybe you don't know how to answer this question, but I'm more
ask anyway.
Right, I'm more curious. Like, so, how do you? Let's say they match the box. They check the boxes. You hire someone, and you're halfway through the season, but they're starting to show characteristics that are not in alignment with the boxes.
Yeah.
So like
we missed the boat for sure.
Right, like you missed, but now you're, I don't want to say stuck with them, but now what's the conversation with that player like? How are you talking to them? How are you dealing with them to encourage them to kind of show up?
Great question. It's first and foremost, I put that on ourselves, on me, because I obviously didn't do my homework well enough. So I think that's for me, again, circling back to the accountability piece, that's something on me, and I've got to be honest in myself and say, didn't do it right. So I've made a commitment, and I've got to try and help this person.
Yeah.
I've got to try and help this person. Whatever those deficiencies are that I feel, it's about that relationship and being like, where's it not clicking your side? Yeah. What do we need to do to help you? And trying to find a way to work on that.
What do you find those most common things are?
To help them? Or that they need help in?
Is it mental? Is it mostly like...
I would say it is, yeah. It's a big piece. It really is. Because most of these guys are good enough players. They've got the attributes to be good players. But this controls everything else. So if they're not in the right mental mindset, then they struggle.
Do you, I mean, obviously you do, but do you intentionally coach mindset with them? Like, I mean, obviously you have drills that you run where they're, you know, whether they're cones or whether they're field drills. Like, do you guys have some specific mindset stuff that you're doing with players?
I wouldn't say specific mindset kind of protocols. I wish I had somebody to do that on staff, but it's kind of a small staff. So we try and make it work with what we've got, which is fine. It's not a bad thing. But we have a certain cadence within our training and certain activities within training, like practices that we do, that require a certain level of just determination, grit, will to win, work. You're exhausted. Your team's losing. What are you doing? In many ways, you may have heard the phrase, or maybe not, the game's the teacher. Yeah. Like the game's the teacher of life lessons. Yeah. Is because, yes, you're playing this game.
You write that one down.
You're playing this game, but within it, there's so much more that goes into it. You know, we're in practice, you're playing a 5-game tournament, your team's lost 3 of them. Are you just going to just throw it in and just be like, oh, whatever, we've lost the tournament now, so we're just going to give in? Or are you going to be a leader within your team and say, hey, guys, come on, we need to do this problem solve, let's try and raise the level? Are you, as a team, going to find some grit, some pride within yourself to just that winning mentality deep inside to find a way to win the last game? You know, show something. There's components of that, but if I zoom into the individual, It depends on what the struggles may be. So some things I like to do is figure out, first of all, through the connection with the player, what the problem is, and hopefully you get to the point where you find out. Some professional players are so worried about what you might think of them and them losing their starting spots on the weekend, they don't share anything. They're just like, oh no, I'm fine. But you can see with the body language and something's not right. But if you can get through to the player, usually can find out what it is, and then it's just a conversation, and sometimes just a conversation helps.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just a key word or a trigger word for them where they're losing focus in the game. It's a key word or a trigger word where it's just like, focus. If I just say that word, I know what I need to do within the game. There's some kind of psychological methods with that, but yeah, there's a couple of different ways we go about it. It's very holistic in how we have to approach it.
Yeah. Because are you training a ton of technical skill at this level? Or is it a lot more just like play as a team, mindset, overcoming that at this level?
It's a bit of both. It's mostly the tactical work and mindset and refining and building like partnerships and relationships within a team, because getting 11 guys to be on the same page,
you're just building a culture, so you're kind of,
and getting 11 guys to be on the same page on the pitch is hard enough. But there is some technique involved in the early part of the activities too.
And I know one question I always wanted to ask you, because it was from watching the team from 3 years ago before it even started, to sitting in the stands in Omaha for that championship game. We lost. I don't like losing at anything, so that felt bad. But what did you say to the team
after the game?
After the game, in the locker room, like what do you go in and say? I'm always curious. That I watch these coach speeches, and I'm like, I don't even know what I would say. Like, part of me would be like excited, part of me would be frustrated. The emotional level, and you're trying to hit everybody where they're all deflated. Right, you go out to win every time. But actually, one question I've always wanted to ask you, and I haven't ever done that.
Yeah, I'll share some of it. I got emotional.
Yeah.
I cried a little bit, not necessarily because of the result. Honestly, and it was kind of a weird thing, because I thought after the game I would have more of a reaction to the result and losing the final than I did, but I didn't. There was just an insane, an overwhelming feeling of pride.
Wow. Yeah.
Because of what the group had done for the city of Spokane, and I'm kind of getting emotional about it now.
It was cool.
Because of what they'd done for the city of Spokane. Expansion teams don't do what happened last year. It doesn't happen in our world. To connect with the community, to get to a final the way we did, the ups and downs that we went through in the season, to connect as a group together in 10 months, and to go out there and go on the journey that we did together and make Spokane love soccer. I mean, it is about the results, it is about winning, it is about success in our world. But if you look at Flatstick, if you look at Brick West, if you look at all these places that are just packed to the walls with fans watching our games on the TV, that didn't exist outside of Gonzaga, you know? So for us to do that in 10 months was insane. So honestly, it was about that. I zoomed out in a moment. I was like, guys, the pride, you're not feeling it right now. You're just on the game. You're not going to feel this for a while. But what you've given this community, what you've done for this community, you're not going to feel it in this moment. But give it a week or two, you're going to understand what you've done. And while I was saying that, I was choking up and probably shed a tear or two. But I was super proud of them and the whole club. And that's really what we spoke about after the game.
Yeah, well, that's cool.
So, how many of the players are coming back?
We got about 65% of the roster returning.
Hey, Keith, open tryouts are this weekend. If you want to give it one more shot,
I think
just dust off the cleats, come back out for one more.
I don't want to hurt anybody else, and I don't want to hurt myself.
Because the hamstring.
Yeah, no, that would not be good. I think I'm out of soccer shape.
Yeah.
But a big part of building a sustainable model for the club, from a business side and building success year on year is, if you look at the teams that build success year on year in our league, are teams that retain most of their roster. They retain most of their roster, build on top of that with more quality, but also the roster that comes back understands the wants, needs, and the basic expectations on the pitch, off the pitch, and you're able to build on that. So that tends to be the formula, is building on top of that and retaining most of your roster.
So couple rapid fire questions just to educate the audience as well as myself that have not followed as closely as we probably should have. Right?
You will this year. So
I will for sure. How many games do you guys play?
This year we got 38.
Yeah.
38 games
38.
in 10
So
months.
that is USL League One, that is Jägermeister Cup, and that is US Open Cup.
Yep.
Okay.
So Jägermeister Cup is a tournament that was introduced last year that is going to be USL League One and USL Championship. The two USL professional leagues will basically compete against each other in the tournament.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
The US Open Cup is a tournament that is the oldest tournament in US. And basically that opens up a pathway, an opportunity for the amateur Joe Schmo team to play against the pros.
It's like the
And
U.S.
it's-
Open in golf.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's the coolest. So it's
David
every league.
Verskalaev.
Every league comes in, and we actually did all right. That was good. But yeah, so it's a cool tournament.
Yeah.
The Hunt Trophy. Is that right?
Lamar Hunt.
Lamar Hunt Trophy. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then
it's-
just regular games,
and then league games.
and that
yeah.
doesn't count playoffs, right?
Yeah, and then playoffs. If you get into playoffs, like there was 3 games last year,
games
so
last year.
yeah,
And it's a cool one. So the
So you're
format's
playing
really
like
cool.
a game a week ish?
yeah,
Oh, at least.
Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes
Sometimes
too.
a Wednesday,
Sometimes too.
Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday.
And you guys play here at the One Stadium?
You gotta check it out. They actually
One Spokane,
did a
yeah.
good job with the stadium. It's a cool viewing experience, I'd say, for what it is. But
It looks like it. I
it
mean,
is.
Yeah.
And it gets packed. Sometimes on TV, if you watch on TV, you don't really actually know how many people are there because it shows the short side of the stadium.
Oh.
But the grandstands are full.
Yeah.
And then it's the short sides. You can tell if it's sold out or did we hit 4,000 people. And that's kind of your judge of the one. Beers are still a little too expensive, so we're working on that one.
the important
I need an
factors.
affordable beer when watching the game. But it is super interesting from a numbers game because, like, you look at football, they have so many breakages of time, stoppage of time. Soccer's tough because it's always going. So you really get halftime.
Yeah.
You get before the game and you get halftime. And so from a merchandise sales and getting in front of the people, it's actually a very interesting dynamic because there's no timeouts. There's no real, like, take a break, do your commercial. And so it's been super interesting to just be a part of that. But it also, because of that, I believe it moves faster. What we should do is just make a goal worth 7.
Yeah.
So then your final scores are 21-14. And then all of a sudden, hey, there's NFL football. We're back. But super cool experience.
I look forward to it. So that's a lot of games in a fairly short amount of time. You talked a lot about winning over the community or becoming a part of the community. What are you guys doing off the field with the community? Are you guys doing much interacting with the community?
Yeah, there's
Not.
a ton.
Yeah.
There's a ton.
What does
going
that
on.
look like?
It's everything. I mean, getting into schools. It is. Even this year, we did like a front of kit sponsor. That is the first time that has ever been done in professional sports. If I'm correct in
Yeah,
saying
so
that.
we did one where basically every month it changed to a different different nonprofit. So it was a kind of a barcode, but then proceeds went to a nonprofit one month, like Thrive International. Then it went to another one the next month. And
So
instead of having a major like,
So rather than have
Yeah.
a big sponsor on the front, it's a QR code. And when you scan that QR code, then it comes up at halftime on the screen and it comes up on ESPN too. You scan that barcode each month, it goes to a different.
so you can give to a nonprofit. So versus having
Oh, wow.
in our market, who would that be? Like a Quest or a big name like that on the front. It was that. And it was kind of a cool way to give back throughout that whole year, essentially.
Yeah, but I would say there's probably something new almost every week.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's out there doing something different in the community.
Yeah.
And not just given to the community, but you know, when the 509 have our supporters group have their events, you know, showing up to those events and just being present. And you know, sometimes I think there's a disconnect between professional athletes and people.
Yeah.
We're all just people.
Yeah.
These guys are just talented at what they do, but just taking away that barrier. Just there doesn't need to be this. Look at these professionals on the pitch, and then look at us watching these professionals. It is. Let's just be friends and get along and have a good time and talk about life and
Yeah,
take
you
away
don't
that
see
barrier.
that in many sports, to be
Yeah.
honest.
No.
Professional athletes get pretty segregated
Yeah.
from.
Yeah. No, they're pretty integrated. They do a good job. I mean, it's just a lot of youth activities, a lot of youth sports stuff.
Yeah, it's really about, again, I say the relationships, but building a relationship with the fans. It is so cool to know that, you know, one of our players can connect with a fan in Brick West,
Yeah.
at a fan event, and
Yeah.
they get to know each other, and all of a sudden, you know, this person loves this player and comes to the games to watch
Yeah.
this player. So it's a nice cycle that we have in terms of building that connection, but it pays back for the club by that person coming to the stadium,
Yeah.
watching that player, and building that relationship, and it helps us get the support we do.
Oh, and it's cool. And after you literally have hundreds of people down getting signatures.
Yeah.
So every player goes down. The goalie gives. Oh, it's the best.
That's
Brooks
the cool
gave away his
thing.
gloves. And these kids, you see them running up, and you're like, I just want to go to the Mariners games as a kid, and I'd take my little ball down there, and no Griffey signed it, right? And it was cool, and obviously not scaled that one, but
That's the cool thing about this year, I think, is if you look at game one, like you didn't really have the kids lining up to get autographs, and then that last home game that we had this year, there's probably 100, 200 kids who were just there, just like, sign me shit, sign me croc.
Yeah,
sign
30,
me,
40 minutes
yeah,
after.
sign me face, sign me arm. And I'm like, is your mom okay with this? But it's like, if you look at the Richmond game from the start of the year, where I don't remember us having that many kids I think it was the Knoxville game was the last game at home.
Yep.
The impact that we've just had on the youth community in itself, and the amount of kids that we've kind of given role models to, and given them something to follow and aspire to be on the women's side too, not just on the Velocity side, the Zephyr side. Yeah. Just again, that's why I said what I said after the final, because if you really zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the impact this club and this business and this has had on this community is insane in 10 months. So I'm excited to see what the next few years
and that's where the
brings.
playoffs were cool, because you got to know the people. Like you think of, you ever watch Wrexham? It's Ryan Reynolds' film on Wrexham, right? Yeah. And you look at him like, well, it's soccer. It's actually pretty low-level soccer. But he turned it in, and what did he do? He only interviewed the people. It was, how did Keith, as a business owner, receive this news of it? And you look at it, and it's like this cool culture piece, and you forget sports infiltrate so much.
Well, I think it's just cool to have that path, even for young soccer players here in Spokane. I mean, like I said, I played soccer when I was young, but you didn't see that. But like with hockey, you had the Chiefs. With baseball, you had the Indians. So like to have that local for kids. You know what I'm curious about? I'm curious like who's going to be the first Spokane native to play for the team.
Ooh, we had Parker, didn't.
No, he didn't technically sign. He was training with the team. I mean, the closest we got is Derek Waldeck. And then we've got Cam Miller, who was out from
Seattle, though, right?
And
he was at the Seattle tryout.
Yeah, and then Mikey Rojas, who we signed from tryouts, who's from Moses Lake.
Yeah.
Okay.
Luckily, I'm from Moses Lake, so I always have a special place in my heart for Mikey Rojas. And then what's cool is we have the first women's professional team, so the Zephyr right alongside it. So then same thing. That was also a cool first game. Was they had this one where all the youth soccer players came out. So it was like 400 girls.
Wow.
All came out on the pitch on the very first game. And you're like, sometimes they transcend like Brick Rust, even, right? It's a little business. You write down a napkin, you hope you make good beer. But then go there when there's 1,000 people listening to music with their family, drinking a beer in that plaza, and you're like, man, sometimes
it means more.
It transcends a little more. Yeah.
So, you guys say the pitch.
Yeah, I had to start saying that.
Right?
Field. It's field.
It's the field, right? Okay, so
but you sound way cooler. You sound so much cooler when you say the pitch.
And I'm like,
I just nod now. Yeah, it's pitch.
I've also probably at some point in this podcast said soccer and football and mixed between the two. So
you said it like very early on. You said it, and I was like, "Oh, Keith, better make sure you say football."
Got it. But not to be confused.
Don't want to screw that one up. But so the pitch is the field.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But do you call like you? And I maybe took it initially wrong. But when you were talking about like, I thought you were like talking about like going out on the road.
No.
Like going out. Okay. So the pitch is the field.
Pitch is the field.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So
nobody likes our pitches because they're all fake grass.
Well, I'm in sales, so for me the pitch is like the sale.
You know the pitch,
right?
exactly.
So
It gets you excited though. Either way,
like, hey, tomorrow you got the pitch. I'm like, that's. I guess it's not the field.
I mean, if you want to put it in business sense, the pitch for us is going out there and playing to pitch people to come in and watch, and we do it on the pitch. So you can connect the two. That's how you can remember it.
There you go.
There.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. This has been great, and I look forward to maybe having you guys come back and talk to like a little closer to the season. When's the season start?
Season March
16th.
Right? First home, non-preseason, first season opener. Yeah. It'll be a home game.
Home game.
I already got your tickets. I already got your tickets lined up. You're coming.
You're
coming.
All right. I'm gonna come catch my first Major League Soccer game. Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Leigh. Obviously, it goes without saying, but it's cool to see a coach's perspective on mindset. Half that story I didn't even know. We obviously need to drive more beers together, but it's super fun, and Spokane's lucky to have you. So
I appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thanks for listening to today's episode. While you're out there, would you please do us a favor and give us a like, subscribe, or a follow, whether you listen on Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you don't mind while you're there, give us a 5-star review. Maybe write a review. If you have a favorite episode, feel free to give it a like. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it.